What up, everybody? Instructabeats back again. Today we are going to be ordering rational numbers, not from a restaurant, but we're going to do it by using a number line. So let's dive under the water and see what our objective is today. Our objective today I will be able to order 3 or more rational numbers by plotting them on a number line. So the last 2 lessons we've been comparing rational numbers, but we've only been doing 2 rational numbers. Today we're going to take it to the next step and do 3 or more. Let's review our skills that we're going to be using in today's lesson. So previously we talked about comparing 2 different rational numbers. So this question says, write an inequality statement for the rational numbers shown on the number line. So I know I want to compare, right, using less than, greater than, or equal to the 2 rational numbers shown on the number line. The first thing I need to do then is figure out what are my numbers. I need to recognize what scale is being used on my number line. So here's 0. And here are my integers. I have -1 and -2. And each of my wholes is split into 3 separate pieces, which means I know each of my dashes is going to be worth 1/3. So here I have -1/3. That's going to be one of my rational numbers. I would have -2/3 here, -1 whole, or you could write that as -3/3. Okay, and then I need to go one more. So this is going to be -4/3, or you could say 1 1/3. Now that I know what my 2 rational numbers are, I want to compare them. So let's put -4/3 here, okay? And we are going to be comparing that using less than, greater than, or equal to -1/3. Just like I learned in my previous lessons, the further to the left on the number line, the smaller you are, and the further to the right on the number line, the bigger you are. So I can see that -4/3 is further to the left than -1/3, which means -4/3 is less than -1/3. Again, comparing these rational numbers using their place and relationship to each other on the number line. Today we're going to be doing the same exact thing, except now we're going to have more than 2 numbers. So right here it says order these from least to greatest. Okay, and we're going to be writing an inequality statement. And I know because I'm going from least to greatest, I'm really going from left to right on my number line. So the first thing I want to do, oops, gotta make sure I can write it where you can read it. The first thing I want to do is I want to put these 4 rational numbers on my number line. So here I have 0, and I recognize that my scale for this is 1 unit. Okay, so each dash is worth 1 unit, whether it's negative or positive. So let's start with -4 and 2/10. So if I'm going to -4, I'm going to the left. That's the direction that it's telling me to move. 1, 2, 3, 4 units, and then 2/10 more. So just a little bit more. I kind of have to guesstimate where that's at. And this is where -4 and 2/10 would be. My next rational number is +6. Again, I know it's positive because there isn't a negative sign in front of it. So I'm going to be moving 6 units to the right of 0. And I'll label that right there and put a 6 above it. I have these 2 rational numbers. My next one is going to be -4. So the negative sign tells me I'm moving to the left of 0, 4 units, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I can see, whoop, right there. I'm going to have to share that spot, so I'll just put it down here. My green dot is -4. And then my last one is 6 1/2. So I'm going to be going 6 units to the right because it was positive, and then 1 more half, and I'll be putting my blue dot right there, and that's where 6 1/2 is going to be. Now I need to order them or write an inequality statement to compare these 4 rational numbers. And again, I was going from least to greatest, which means I'm going to be going from left to right on my number line. So I see that -4 and 2/10 was the furthest number to the left, which means it has the least value. So I'll be doing -4 and 2/10 is less than, my next one would be -4, right? And that's going to be less than +6 was my next one. And then my last one, the biggest one, the furthest to the right, was 6 1/2. So I've compared these using my number line. And that's all we're doing today. We're doing the same exact thing we did the last few lessons, except we're going to be doing more than 2 numbers. For our we do problem, we're going to be ordering these 4 rational numbers going from greatest to least. And again, we know we're going to be going from right to left on the number line. But you don't have a number line here. So here we're just going to draw the number line, and we're not going to do it exactly perfect, okay, because this is just helping us visualize until you get the hang of it. And because I have both negative and positive integers here, okay, we're going to put a 0 here. These are all integers, meaning they're negative or positive whole numbers, but they're also rational numbers. So you can call them integers or rational numbers. You can use this interchangeably for this group of numbers. So here I have negative 400, which means I'm going to be going directionally to the left of 0, 400. So I'll make that all the way over here. My next one would be positive 400, so the same distance to the right, which means these are going to be opposite numbers. Review of our math terms, right? They're on opposite sides of 0, and they're the same distance from 0. Then I have a positive 40, which means I'm starting at 0, and I'm moving to the right 40 units. Your ratio between the two numbers doesn't have to be perfect. You're just using this to help you visualize. So it's going to be obviously way less than 400, so maybe somewhere right here, okay? And then your last one's going to be negative 10, so it's going to be moving to the left 10 units. So pretty close to 0 on this number line. And now we've shown all 4 rational numbers. Now we want to order them. And again, we're going from greatest to least, which means we want the biggest one first. I see that the furthest number to the right was 400, so I'm going to say 400 is greater than, the next one is going to be 40. I think I wrote too many zeros there the first time as I was trying to rush. And that's going to be greater than negative 10, because that's the next one to the left. And then the smallest one, the one furthest to the left, was negative 400. So you don't have to have the number line perfect, but you can use it to help you kind of visualize your numbers, kind of estimate where they would go, and that will help you make sure you put them in the right order. If you feel good about this problem, you are ready to enter the challenge zone. So our challenge zone question says, Olivia collected some data for an experiment she was doing. She asked 3 friends how many miles they ran a day. The chart below shows how each person's response compares to the national average of 2 miles a day for runners. And there's 3 things we want you to do here because it's the challenge zone. We want you to plot each of the numbers in the rightmost column. Okay, so that would be this one right here, on the number line. Okay, so you're going to draw a number line and be plotting these numbers right here. You're going to list those numbers from greatest to least using an inequality statement. And then you're going to answer the question, what does 0 represent on your number line? If you're ready to try this one by yourself, go ahead and push pause, solve all of these questions, and then push play to check your understanding. If not, you can do it with us as another We Do problem, and that is totally fine. Hopefully you just paused it, and now you're ready to check your work. So it says plot each of the numbers in the rightmost column on the number line below. So this is comparing all 3 of these people to 2 miles. So I'm going to draw my number line. I'll label this 0. I can see that these are all pretty small numbers, so I'll just kind of put my dashes pretty close to each other right there. And I can label it as 1, 2, -1, and -2. So Ava was at a 2. So I'm going to put Ava right here, and I'll put an A above it. Arohi was at -1. So that's also A, but I'll just put like a row and then put I right here. Okay, Arohi was at -1. And Ishal, or E, was at 0. So now I've plotted each of the numbers on the rightmost column on the number line. I want to list those numbers from greatest to least. So greatest means my biggest numbers are the furthest ones to the right, and least is my smallest numbers or the furthest one to the left. So I want to compare them going from right to left. Ava was the furthest to the right, so she was the biggest. So I'm going to say 2 is greater than 0, which is greater than -1. Okay, I was going from right to left. And now the last question is probably the one you had to think about. It says, what does 0 represent on your number line? Well, these numbers over here are compared to the national average of 2 miles a day. So you can see that Ava actually ran 4 miles a day, but when you compared it to 2, it was 2 more than 2. Arohi only did 1 mile a day, but when you compared that to 2, 1 would be to the left 1 unit. So she was at -1. And Ishal ran exactly 2 miles a day, which means when you compared it to 2, she was right at 0. So for this question, your 0 actually represents 2 miles, the national average for how many miles people run a day. Arohi was 2 more than that, which would really be 4. Ishal was right on it, which means she ran exactly 2. And Arohi was at -1, which means she ran 1 less than 2, which would be 1. So for this number line, your 0 actually represents 2 miles. That's a higher level thinking thought, but that's where we're going. That's why we want to give you these challenge questions to continue to push your thinking. What we want you to take with you again is the same thing from the last couple lessons. As you move to the right or up the number line, the value of the numbers get bigger, and as you move to the left or down the number line, the value of the numbers gets smaller. Thank you so much for checking us out today. We really appreciate you spending your time with Instructabeats. Check out the rest of our negative number unit and our negative number song. We would love to have you leave a comment. Let us know where you're watching from, like the video, and join our Instructabeats family by subscribing. Again, thank you so much. Instructabeats out.